こんばんは。
こんばんは。
左からドクター・モーガンの、バイコンのプレジデントです。本社のプレジデントのドクター・モーガンです。一番こっちのこの人。
Hello.
That's me now, right?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, me now.
で、この私の横にいる人がドクター・ダーハー、シャディ・ダーハーと言いまして、外科の先生で今日のオペをやる人です。で、今この部屋ではやらないんですけど、この隣の部屋でやります。皆さん準備いいですか？ Are we ready?
Yeah, I just.
で、即時に埋入するのをやります。で、後ろにルートチップが残ってるんですけど、それも抜きます。今日抜きます。今日は今この矢印が動いてるところはサイナスのフロアが見えてますけども、で今日はここの部分をやりません。ルートチップエクストするだけで、で今こっちのラインのところでこの小球子トゥールート本が2本あるやつなんで、それを抜いてここにはインプラントを前にします。後ろの部分は抜くだけです。
So what we will first show is the atraumatic extraction technique, and for the atraumatic extraction technique, the mainstay is the use of periotomes.
ペリオトームを使うことによってなるべく侵襲の少ない抜歯の仕方をします。
Okay, good. And this is a straight periotome.
ストレートペリオトームを使うことによって、
This is the other end of the same instrument. It's slightly angled. Those are very useful when we are working in an area that's easily accessible, such as the aesthetic zone. Turn slightly more to me, that way I won't have to put my head in the picture. Okay, so as you see what we're creating, and I'm sure you all know this, I'll just repeat it since I'm working with it, is creating a periodontal defect without destroying bone. That makes the tooth loose and makes it easy to remove. Open wider, please.
ペリオトームを使うことで骨になるべく侵襲を与えないようなにルートチップというかまだほとんど残ってるんですけども、それを
The periotome does not elevate or doesn't mobilize the root at all. All it does is create space. Severing the periodontal ligament is really what it does.
基本的にPDL をだんだん広げてって緩めるという形で、その他何もしないです。エレベーターの役割は全然しないので。
Now to start mobilizing or moving the root, we will use a luxator.
ラクセーターを使うことで、
Okay, the luxator is slightly thicker than a periotome.
少しラクセーターの方がペリオトームよりも分厚いので、ほんの少しです。エレベーターよりも多分。
It doesn't elevate really. What we're doing is trying to get in and widen that space that we created with the periotome.
ペリオトームで広げた部分をもう少し広げるためにラクセーターを使います。
Don't mind the noises, okay? So I start feeling the tooth is moving. Notice there's always a finger on the buccal plate because that's the one thing we want to protect.
バカルプレートの方に必ず指を支えながらやって感触を持ちながらするのが原則です。
Now, to be able to see what is going on with this tooth, we will use these very thin and internally serrated forceps.
先っぽがすごく細くなっているフォーセップで内側がギザギザがついてます。で掴みやすい状態になっているものを使って今
You position them as apically as possible and use figure of 8 luxation.
8の字型でラクセーションしています。
What we're trying to do is create a bit of widening in 3 dimensions, aided by the slight swelling that happens in the PDL to remove the tooth. So it's very gentle luxation compared to just using
時
forceps.
間をかけてあんまり無理しないように PDL を思いっきり
We have a little root tip, that's okay.
1本ルートチップはかけました。
So for root tips, we have a very thin luxator. Okay, hold that for a second. Open as wide as you can. And come up. Suction. Good, good, good.
Can you go closer?
I don't know if we can do any more of a close-up. So what we do is, all this does is, again, continue the luxation. No, don't suction it. And what you have is, because we mobilize the tooth very well, the little root tip comes out very easily. Okay? This is a 2mm wide luxator made specifically for this.
これ 2ミリ幅のラクセーターです。
Finished. We will first correct this osteotomy. Oh, excuse me. Are you okay? Oh, good. I just thought you were holding your stomach. So you want to make sure you remove all remnants of the PDL. And we do have, in this particular case, a septum, which is a little kind of a mountain of bone or pyramid of bone between the 2 root sockets, which I will remove now.
もちろんよくキュレットしたするんですけども、この小臼歯の場合ルート2本あったんで、もちろんセプタムの真ん中にあって、それも今
We use a small ronger.
取ります。
And we will just ronger it off a little bit, like so. Okay, we take off just this bit of bone. That will get in the way and will force us to be too palatal in the placement. This way, we can go right in the middle
このセプタムを
and
落
have
とし
the
たまま
implant
だ
in the
と
proper location. Now, before we
どっちかに偏ったようなインプラントの埋入方向になってしまうんで。
So we're going to go ahead and remove the roots of the molar in preparation for a placement of an implant later on. And thankfully, those roots have self-separated. So I'll quickly remove them.
インプラントを埋入する前にまず後ろのついでに後ろのルートチップを今取っておきます。この部分に関しては今日は何もしないです。
Okay. Suction. So distal buccal root. Suction inside. Palatal root. And mesial buccal root. Okay, great. We'll clean those sockets as well. Okay. And after this, we will take some irrigation, clean the sockets while we prepare to place the implants. The one thing that I want to, before I do that, there's a little bit of the overgrown distal papilla that's going to be over the implant. I'm just going to thin it out so that we have a cleaner entry point. That's all. Suction. Good. All right. The irrigant that we use is sterile water. It is hypotonic. It's not normal saline. This helps lyse all remaining bacteria and other cells in the area. And hopefully the good cells will be replaced with bleeding and the bad cells will be washed away. Good. Now we'll go ahead and place a Bicon implant. Okay. The Bicon implant technique is a little bit of a paradigm shift. It starts off by placing a pilot hole using, zoom out just a bit so they can see. You okay? You don't have to do anything. Just relax. Okay, so we will use a pilot burr, which is 2 millimeters.
皆さんご存知のようにパイロットバーは2ミリ径の
Okay, it is a twist drill and made of stainless steel.
これはステンレススチールでできてます。
All right, so as we will place this first perforation, I don't need to go very deep because it's already close to the sinus and it's deep enough. I just want to make sure that I have the perforation in the middle, right at the edge of that septum we had in there.
ちょうどセプタムの真ん中にパイロットホールを入れられるような形で持ってきます。
Okay, and the notches on the pilot burr correspond to lengths of implants. So we have 6, 8, 11, and 14. If I were to place an 8 millimeter implant, I would want it to be placed approximately 4 to 5 millimeters below the edge of the gingival cuff right here. So 8 plus 5 is about 13, and that's what I will try to go to, okay? So I don't have to go that deep because we will put a short implant. However, because this is an extraction, I like to prepare my osteotomy, the full depth of the extraction, just so I can remove all of the tissue hard tissue that was in contact with the infected root that was removed. Okay? Because we don't have much of a perforation, we can't use a paralleling pin. So I will maneuver into position just by using the handpiece and my kind of estimate and position. Okay, so this is now the second mainstay of the Bicon technique is a slow reaming with no irrigation. Use a mirror instead of that, please.
イリゲーションなしの50回転。
Good. So now, as we progress, the increments are pretty straightforward. It goes in half millimeter increments, so from 2 to 2.5, which is the first streamer, to 3.
0.5 ミリずつ幅を広げていきます。これが3ミリになります。パイロットドリルが2ミリだって一番初めのリーマーが 2.5 これが3ミリになります。で今回は 5×6 を多分入れる形になると思います。
You okay? Are you all right? You seem to be... Okay, so now we're at 3.5. And as I withdraw this one, I look at the flutes and I see that there's very little bone in the flutes.
3.5 ミリぐらいからこのフルートの中に少しずつ骨が見えてきます。
This is a typical type 3 bone. In other words, the bone is not absolutely dense, nor is it absolutely loose or thin. So it's a moderate type of bone. This will require an extra month of healing.
これはだいたいタイプ3の骨でそんなに密度もないしかといって全然ないわけでもないぐらいなので待ち時間も少し健康な骨よりも長めに待たなきゃいけない多分4ヶ月って言うと思うんですけど。
Are you all right?
さっきのピンクが4ミリで今これ 4.5 ミリです。
Now, as we start almost at the final size, so before I go to the full size, I will take a straight curette and check that the walls will accept the very final size. I could place a 4.5 millimeter wide implant, but if I could go to a 5, I prefer to do that.
今 4.5 の部分でちょうど今ボーダーラインぐらいらしいです。キュレットで中を確かめて、残存骨を出してますけども、できれば5ミリに行きたいと。
One of the other features of the Bicon system is the ability to harvest bone. You saw some of it come into flutes, and a lot of it, in case of extraction, stays behind in the voids that are in the socket of the extracted tooth. It's important to harvest those. This is stuff that you don't have to pay for. It comes in. and it allows you to cover the shoulder of the implant.
バイコンインプラントのこれの特徴なんですけども、こうやって残存骨をきれいに取って後で使える
some pain?
と。
Okay. Now you can suction. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and finish this by hand. Oh, we don't
で
have
最後の
6mm.
リーマー、ハンドリーマー
It's
使い
fine.
ます。
You know
もう
what? It's fine. I'm just using it.
ハンドリーマーの方がコントロールが効くので、万が一薄いところがあったらそこはカットしないように。
The hand reamer, as Dr. Hirayama explained, gives you a little more control. Starting to learn Japanese now, right?
How did you know I said that?
I think, is that what you said?
Yeah.
It gives you more control. Been learning Japanese secretly.
でこのハンドリーマーのは片側にしかフルートがないんでコントロールがしやすいのとこうやって出てきたのも綺麗に見えます。
Okay, so this is what we have now in the end. So we end up with a significant amount of bone, which will help us cover this implant, filling the whole void with the autogenous bone. Now, if you notice, the osteotomy is pretty deep. If I put a 5 by 6 mm implant in there, it may be too deep. But the one other feature of the Bicon implant is that we control how deep you place the implant, even without screwing it in and stopping. Take a 5 by 6, please.
でこれ 5x6 をそのまま入れてしまうと多分深く入りすぎてしまうので入れ方でそれをコントロールできるのがバイコンの特色です。
Now, the
スクルータイプと違ってこうスクルーインするんではなくてフリクションで入れますから。
the Bicon implant comes in a bag.
こういうバッグで入ってきます。こ
It's
れ
doubly
5×6 で
sterile.
す。
It has a carrier plug, the black plug that you see that I'm holding the implant with.
黒いのがキャリアのプラグです。
Okay. However, that plug doesn't give me as much control as I like.
プラグを入れたままだと自分のコントロールしたいように入れられないので、これを彼は今から取ります。でも袋のメッキン袋の外側からつまんでますよね、インプラント。
So I will remove it.
でプラグを取ってそこにインプラントインサーターを入れます。
And this is what he just told you, the implant inserter retriever. Okay. I will put that in here.
これを使って、
So this has now a handle
ハンドルがああいうふうについてます。
that gives me good control to position the implant at exactly the angulation, the location, and the depth that I have intended it to be.
角度も場所もすべてうまくコントロールしやすいです。
As you can see, I can lock it in place, and then by twisting this short handle counterclockwise, like so, try not to
で
move,
これ見てるとあんまよくわからないかもしれないですけど、
it
ああやって
disengages it. Now the implant is behind.
フィンの先
Right where we
を
want it.
壁に引っ掛けることによって途中で止められるんですよ。短いのでも入れたい方向で。
Suction in there. Now, to make sure that I have it where I want it to be,
こ
I
れ
will
ガイド
use
ピン
it.
です。3ミリポスト用のガイドピンなんですけども、二条ペンの時に使うやつですが、これで方向性をこの時点で
So you can see with the guide pin, it's in the proper location and angulation. Now, if I want to make sure the depth is okay, we can see that it's just about 3 millimeters from the edge of the bone, which is acceptable in the aesthetic zone. Now, you have the choice
今これ骨円下3ミリに入ってます。
of using the black healing plug and completely burying it, or doing this as a one stage. When I use ultra short implants, 6 millimeter or shorter, I prefer to keep the implants buried. In other words, in two stage.
ショートインプラント、特にウルトラショートインプラントと言われている 5×5 とか 5×6 とかその6ミリ以下のものをやるときは今彼言ったようにこう
Now, before we
やるときでも
we can bury it, we have to make sure that the well of the implant remains free of bone. So for that, we will put the black plug inside to seal it. Then we put bone on top of everything. I'm going to estimate the length.
今骨円下3ミリで歯肉の厚さはだいたい2ミリぐらいなんで、それを考えながらヒーリングプラグを切ってやって埋めてしまうやり方と1回法でやるやり方と両方あります。でも短いショートインプラント入れるときは2回法をおすすめします。
Okay. And to place it in the well, a perio probe goes in a small perforation that's manufactured inside the black
プラグ
plug.
の真ん中に開いてる穴にペリオプローブでやってやるとちょうどキャリアのようになるので、そのままあのように持ってきます。
Now, this is all the bone we harvested from this osteotomy.
でその上からこのハーベスト、さっき採取した骨を、自家骨を
Make sure that it's nicely particulated. In other words, in small pieces. Because you don't want to put big pieces. And when you have a septum, you may end up with big pieces that peel off during the osteotomy process. So we just smash it around. Okay? And by squeezing it onto the back of a Pritchard, becomes easy to handle. Even if you tip it down, it don't fall off. It doesn't fall off.
ダペンディッシュの中でこうギュッとこうスクイーズさせて、
Like that.
でような形で Can you do that again? いや、ああやってやるとペリオスティールのお尻のところにうまくくっついたような感じで持っていけます。
Okay, we just use a sterilized cotton-tipped applicator.
これメッキン
Okay.
メッキンのチップを使って少し押してやる。これは
It's okay, got it.
使いやすいです。
And we take a Bicon collagen plug. And we cut it in piece. Take a piece.
バイコンのコラジェンプラグを上
Sometimes the touch can be too light, right? Okay, we pack it in, and then we'll take a suture to close over. We use resorbable suture.
吸収性のスーチャーを使ってやります。この場合は。
And it's a crossed over, any pain? Horizontal mattress or an inverted figure of 8 suture. It helps hold the collagen plug down. Let me have that. Using the cotton-tipped applicators allows you to sort of dab the red liquid out of the way.
.メッキンのコットンチップが有用なのは出血がひどい時なんか上から押さえてやることでサクションしないで
Also,
取れます。
by using this type of suturing, you will avoid crossing from the edge down to the gingival sides, which mimics incisions and causes unsightly scars. By doing it this way, it really keeps the aesthetics undisturbed.
このリバースフィギュアウェイトのやり方だと
Let's see the back if I need it.
傷つけなくて済みます。
All right.
なんでテンポラリーアバットメントを使わないで2回法選択、まあ、四足時の場合にテンポラリーアバットメントをどうして使わないんですか？
Why didn't you use a temporary abutment after, when you're doing immediate placement?
Because I was going to bury it. The implant is very, very short. We found that the success of two-stage 6mm long implants is over 95%, and I want to use that.
統計的に2回法でやった方が成功率が全然高いことが分かってきてるんで、そっちの方が好きだと言っております。
インプラントが短い長いは関係なしに、ショートインプラントだから。
Is it because of short? The short, long doesn't matter?
No, if it were an 8mm or longer, the difference in success is a lot, I think, smaller. And so we could do it that way. But since this is going to be, the temp is not going to be immediately loaded, it doesn't really make a big difference which way you do it.
Then why you did it one way?
Because, this way, I think it gives you a better aesthetics.
Better aesthetic.
In that, you can have a better control over the bone going over it and so on. Better success.
長い短いはあんまり関係ないんですけども、2回法でやった方が骨の再生とか新生骨ができたりとか再生ができたりとか、この骨ができるできないっていうのも少し変わってきますし、その上でできてくる歯肉もコントロールもしやすいのでっていうのが理由だそうです。だから1回法でやっても別にくっつかないわけではなくて、2回法でやった方が後のコントロールがしやすいっていうことだと思います。
抜歯即時で即時ローディングをする場合はありますか
？Do you do immediate placement, immediate stabilization? Do you do it?
We do it, yes. We do it. We do it usually. In this case, it would have been very much feasible, but we would normally do it with 8mm implants or longer because we found statistically that they are easier to control.
やることはやるんですけども、8ミリかそれ以上の長いインプラントを使う場合にやることが多いです。その方が成功率も統計的にそっちの方がいいことが分かってます。今 X レイが術後の X レイが出ましたんで、それをちょっとお見せします。
So if you look at this X-ray now, let's critique it. Okay, this is 6mm long.
これ6ミリです。長さ。
If you look at the edge of the bone,
ここはエッジのボーンエッジの部分です。
On the distal, because what we can really see is the mesial and distal crests. The distal crest, it's about 2mm above. It's about a third of the length of the implant.
遠心の方は2ミリぐらいの骨が残ってて、近心の方が that's about 3mm?
About 2.
No, the mesial.
On the mesial is a little bit higher. Now, remember something, that the buccal is caved in because of the decay. So we don't have as much depth on the buccal as it is mesial and distal. And the implant will tolerate this very well. If we were to put an 8mm implant, it would have been too shallow because it would have been right here, and that would create a non-aesthetic emergence profile. So you could place an 8mm implant and then do an internal lift, or a 6mm implant like this without an internal lift.
この場合胸側部分の骨が少し吸収というかディケイされてたんで、胸側部分の方が近遠心の骨の高さより少し低いで、この場合なんかはこの6ミリの短いのを入れるか、この形で入れるか、もしくは8ミリのやつをソケットリフトをしながら入れるかっていう形にしていかないと、見かけが骨折を作った時に見かけが悪くなると、歯肉の形成もよくできないのでっていうことです。
And normally, the initial plan would have been to do a sinus lift, a lateral sinus lift, and place implants later. But because of the Bicon short implants, like the 5x6 we've just placed, we can do that with a one-step process. Internal lift and 6x5.7mm implant with a temporary abutment, sinus lift abutment.
従来であれば、例えばショートインプラントがなかった時代だったら、この場合ラテラルサイナスリフトをして、で半年から1年待って、その後インプラントを入れるっていう方法が一番上等手段だったんですけども、 今こういう 6mm の長さのインプラントが入れられる時代になってきたこの、特にバイコンなんですけど、これ入れられるんでソケットリフトをしながら1回で入れることができるっていうことで、多分というかそういう予定で3週間4週間後にあるんですけども、このようなまたイベントがその時に入れる予定です。そのために今日実は抜歯したんですけども。
Now, you could do this procedure now with a one-stage technique and a very wide or large temporary abutment because of the way the sockets are. But if you want to maintain a better control on your osteotomy and better control on the flap, you need to have the flap healed. In other words, the socket sealed with soft tissue, with gingiva. And for that, we wait 8 weeks, and then we can do it.
これ今日やろうと思ったらできたことはできたんですけども、ワンステージのテンポラリーアバットメントを使ってやればできなくはなかったけども、一度そのティッシュヒーリングも骨とハードティッシュソフトティッシュ両方とも一回きれいになってから入れた方がその後の処置もしやすいので、特に審美の部分も考えて歯肉がのコントロールがしやすいってことです。で皆さん今日の感想どうでしたか？
面白かったです。ライブで。
これが良かったんであれば、これからちょくちょくシンプルなもんではなくてもやろうとは考えてます。いろんな形でのやり方を。じゃあ最後にもう一言言ってもらう。I'm gonna give you time for message. You wanna? They're watching us? Yeah. Oh.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, thank you for your attention and for your questions. Those of you who have not used Bicon can obviously how easy it is. And for those of you who have used it a lot, they probably could teach us a thing or two. I apologize if we're too basic. However, you see the possibilities remain wide open when you use very short implants that heal predictably. Thank you for your attention and have a great evening.
Thanks, Dr. Ariam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
どうもありがとうございました。